Hello, welcome back to Forspoken. This is BioEnchanted, and today we'll be exploring the remainder of what we can access, anyway, of the Blessed Plains. So on the way to that photo spot, there's something I want to discuss in this episode on the way there, which is something, criticism I have with the story. People have already brought up the whole thing of all the most interesting things tend to happen in data logs. But I don't really mind that myself personally, because it's just kind of a criticism that can be leveled at any game in which the apocalypse has already happened. In this case, that's just one of those types of stories. And what does get filled in is quite interesting. But what I really want to bring up is the fact that my main criticism to plot myself is that they have this whole thing early on. Was trying to draw comparisons with Alice in Wonderland, having Frey have that mention, draw attention to the book, that sort of thing, and also kind of being pulled into a magical hole after following a small creature from her somewhat miserable life. It's kind of, there's some things there. But then after that point, they seem to kind of just drop it, and that's kind of a shame. They have some characters that seem to be kind of playing into it, like Tanta Tyler, for example, is basically in behaviour, essentially the Red Queen, not Red Queen of Hearts. They're often confused. Basically the Queen of Hearts, in that she's very kind of off with their heads kind of a thing, and very angry and psychotic, and that's fair enough. That's an interesting enough take on it's a fairly simple take on the character, but it works for the character they've got. But they kind of don't really do that much else with it, and that's kind of a shame, because it kind of feels as though they could have done more with it. For example, in the...
Should I take a picture?
Just try not
for example, when it came to, when you first meet Robian, the characters kind of, burn the building with you in it, and they could have played with that a little bit. Oh, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I wonder what that used to be. Well, they kind of play with that,
Nice.
but they could have done more with it. If you want to draw comparisons to Alice in Wonderland, maybe have it be that Robian, because of how long he'd been on his own, he'd be starting to become reliant on Sila's protection, on her fire guys, the guys with the swords that attack you in the tower, and maybe he brings them along deliberately to try and smoke you out when he catches you in the tower. Maybe that they could have done kind of a window cleaner situation with that. They could have gone somewhere with it. That could have been kind of fun. And there's also stuff like Janesh's kind of obsession with following the word of Sila, even though she's clearly gone mad. They could have kind of played with that and had him be sort of like a Kingdom Hearts analog, in that he's sort of a weak little man who's just kind of cowering behind Sila. And that could have worked fairly well as well, during her, when he's on his own without Sila, he has a lot of confidence. As soon as she shows up in town, he starts getting kind of pathetic and hiding behind her. And they kind of play with that a little bit, but they don't really go very far with it. And it just kind of feels like a lot of characters, if you want to go with the whole idea of Athia being a world that's been driven mad, they could have kind of had it maybe little bits of that leaking into Athia or into Cipoll already. Maybe some of the characters are starting to become a bit less stable, but are still relatively sane compared to what's outside Cipoll. For example, with the one Bellette, the one that's all about balance, and that one city leader. Who's never temporarily forgotten, but who's relatively kind of stable. They could have kind of had, maybe gone a bit further with the idea of her being pure logic with no emotion behind it, and had her kind of almost being sort of like a cold-hearted, kind of like the caterpillar, where she's kind of completely detached from the entirety of the story, because she's not allowing herself to feel anything about what's going on, because she's trying to dismiss, she's trying to justify what she's allowing. And you could have had that come across in, for example, when she's the one that's interrogating Frey in the beginning of the story, and they're kind of asking where she came from. They could have even played into the whole "who are you" phrasing and stuff like that, and
Might as well
played with the idea of her sort of being an XP for the caterpillar. They there's some stuff they could have done to really work in the Alice in Wonderland stuff. I mean, certainly a lot of it's on the nose, and that often happens. But when you draw attention to the Alice in Wonderland comparison, I quite like this little area as well, all like the red rocks and stuff. It's a pretty cool little cubby whole area. There's not anything here, but it's a cool little place. But they really could have done more with it, though. It's like, if you're going to draw attention to it that heavily, go a bit further with the comparison. I mean, people would probably complain about it being on the nose, but then again, if you're going to do a thing with Alice in Wonderland, that's kind of what the audience expects, is on the nose comparisons. They kind of expect a Queen of Hearts analog, they expect a caterpillar, and they could have played with Cuff being sort of even the Cheshire Cat situation, with like maybe have his kind of like cold callousness played into a sort of a smarmy, sort of a similar sense of humour that the Cheshire Cat has, a sort of a detached smarm of that kind of goes along with the whole "oh, we're all mad here" sort of a thing, where it even fits with his voice as well to have those kind of mannerisms. But they don't really push into that very much. There's a lot of those that they could really kind of do if you really. There's other areas as well where it kind of comes into that later in the game. I'll kind of go into a few of those as well, where they could have played with the Alice in Wonderland thing, and it kind of feels like
Here, huh?
maybe whether it's because of a lack of imagination or just because they didn't actually plan on doing much with the Alice in Wonderland in the first place, it kind of feels like it was almost like an abandoned idea. Which is a shame, because while it's often quite on the nose, the reason it's often quite on the nose is because Alice in Wonderland characters are fun to adapt and fun to watch. Like Alice in Borderlands, for example, the Mad Hatter was a fun weirdo. And that's kind of what you're looking for with someone like the Mad Hatter. You're looking for a fun weirdo. Yeah, you have a new mechanic here, the locked chests. The locked chests, we just need to trigger the enemies and beat them all up.
There it is. Damn.
Yeah, that's kind of my main thing with this game, is it feels like it doesn't push the Alice in Wonderland stuff as far as it could, given how much attention it gives it early on. So let's finally open this chest and then actually leave this area.
Reasonably impressive, I suppose.
Reasonably? Kiss my ass. Let's see. What do we got here?
That's an interesting little necklace, especially from its description. The Fool's Star necklace. I quite like how minimalist it is compared to the previous one we had. It's a nice little thing. It's just like a little ornament on a chain. So something I quite like about this area as well, we're approaching Tanta Syla, who's basically, as we've heard already, she's a military leader. She led the armies into battle and stuff. And this is the only way to get through this area, this tiny little choke point. Given what they mentioned about the Tantas having complete control over their realms, it kind of feels as though, given this tiny choke point in a massive mountain range that may or may not have been here before, Syla may have completely reconfigured this entire place to be a giant fortress. Which is an interesting enough idea, given what Syla's like. It's impenetrable because she's deliberately built like a fortress out of the landscape itself by just kind of like dropping things further and further into caverns and like down deeper and deeper holes. Like as we saw earlier with that massive cloudy area at the beginning, we had to go quite far down to even get to the main area of this, I guess to reach the first line of the defense. Yeah, I quite like these lizard man people with like the scales being the weird sort of golden bones sticking out all over their body. It's a fun idea. There's some other aspects of the break that I quite like as well that we haven't really seen yet. But this is a very pretty area. And here we are, Prinos proper. I quite like that the first area kind of hides the main area from you, and then this area kind of just gives you a massive vista. It's a fun way to
how come you
escalate.
came to Athia back whenever that was?
What do you mean?
You said you came here from somewhere else, right? How come?
I suppose you could say I was sent here as a messenger. But by the time I arrived, things between the Tontus had deteriorated to the point where they had no desire to listen. They didn't want to hear what I had to say, so they silenced me.
Damn. So they turned you into a cuff? That sucks. What do you think made the Tontus go mad?
If I remember correctly, dissension grew between them. It led to a power struggle. A rift opened up. A rift from which the corruption grew. And where once they worked in perfect harmony, now they stand divided. They retreated to the safety of their kingdoms, and the break soon spread in their wake.
So did the break cause the madness, or the other way around?
It all seems to have happened at around the same time. What's so special about this New York of yours, then?
Central Park in the fall. Oh, and Kanish.
Kanish?
Potato pockets of toasty heaven. My troubles seem to disappear for the 3 to 5 minutes it takes for me to demolish one.
You paint such a vivid picture.
So, welcome to the Guardian's Way. And of course, we get
might
a
be able to
photo
take
right
a
at
nice
the beginning
picture for
just to
those
show the
kids around
massive
here.
vista.
You're the expert.
Alright, let's take this photo.
As I mentioned as well just now, it seems as though Tanta's Tale has kind of dropped her kingdom further and further into massive cliff areas to kind of like wall it off from everything else. And it's kind of turned it into a massive
That's
natural
that.
fortress,
Yes,
which
that
I quite
would be.
like the idea of. And it makes sense for her personality to have that be how her style of madness has hit the world.
Huh?
Let's quickly grab that over there. And also, another new mechanic. And this is one that's a major one that I'll be
Shit.
a
Looks
lot
like
of the
some
time
kind of lock.
skipping over, because these puzzle locks, these are where we'll get most of those little coins, the little ancient coins. And there are so many of them all over the place. Hundreds of them. So a lot of these I'll be getting off screen using a guide, just to speed things up.
What do we got here?
Because while right now things are relatively cheap, these don't give many old coins, and we will need a lot by the end of the LP,
Something
for reasons
nearby.
you'll see. So we have a new monument as well, a monument to justice. We've already seen a monument to kindness. Now we have a monument to justice. And while kindness gives us a little bit more healing power, justice gives us a little extra health.
This looks so different from Janoon.
Madness is like a fingerprint. No two alike. As unique as the individual mind it springs from.
Also, it's a lot more barren than the previous area as well, because, remember, Tantus Tyler's primary style of magic, as we have seen from her minions so far, is fire. Right now, we're still quite far away from her. But we can still start to see the bald spots in the world that she's left behind. So let's actually use our upgrades to get a little extra magic points, and also upgrade the stamina recovery rate by doing flow, and the overall power of our burst magic, our burst shot rather, which both gives us a little extra base magic, but also enhances the damage of the attack itself. Now that we've upgraded that, we're also going to just straight up upgrade the burst shot a little bit further once I remember where it is. Because scatter shot, of course, is already low because we already have it, so that's not what I'm looking for. The problem is I've got so used to a lot of like sphere grid type things, kind of linking everything together when it's... Here's how I remember how things are actually linked and remember where burst shot actually is. So let's upgrade burst shot level 2, which means it has a wider range now. So its splash damage is a lot more wider. Spell combos are kind of
Onward and upward.
situational. We'll kind of just work those in when we can.
What was I gonna make again?
I should have done this before picking up that healing draft. I'm an idiot. Because I can increase our medicine and material pouch capacity. So now I can carry a lot more of those. Well, a few more of those, but every little helps. As you can see, the break completely breaks everyone mentally as well as physically. As we've already seen, of course, from Florian. But this is making it clear that everyone by that point had gone mad. But these refuges often show us where other refuges are in nearby areas. So now there's an area in the northeast rather, which is called the Dianthus Wood. And we can also see we're heading a lot further south to find where we actually need to go.
What are we in the mood for today?
So let's take a new challenge, shall we? Now that we've done 2 of them, let's take some new challenges. First of all, we'll start powering up burst shot further by trying to, wherever we can, hit multiple enemies with a single strike. And also we'll stop powering up scatter shot.
This might be a tad tricky.
But it's just a matter of using it, really. That's a relatively simple one to do. And burst shot level 2 is just a matter of finding a lot of places where there's a lot of enemies.
Did you find something?
So that's this episode, so I'll see you next time as we explore the Guardian's Way. Goodbye.